All right, so now Peter is telling us that our users only want the animal displayed instead of the name. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to override the display. Actually, I'll just paste it right here so we can compare. We'll comment that out. So now it says your favorite animal is animal, and we're no longer accepting the name prop. So I'll just go ahead and save this, and we'll come over here and I'll type in Mulan and Mushu. And boom, all we see is your favorite animal is Mushu. Everything's working. We can ship this, make a pull request, get it merged, and then ship this to production. Our users are super happy about it, and we can just wash our hands of this and move on our way. And that actually is what pretty often happens, but we have a couple of things that we should probably refactor about this to improve the maintainability of our code base, as well as the performance in some situations. So here we have this display, it's accepting the animal, but down here where we're using that display component, we're also passing the name prop. We don't need to pass that anymore, so let's get rid of that. And we save this and everything's working just fine. Mulan and Mushu. And awesome, things are great, you could ship that. But no, let's take this a step further. Whenever I'm looking at some state that's being managed, I like to determine what components are using this state, or what elements in this component are using the state. And if we look at this, we see the name component is using the name value, and the name component is also the only thing that's using the setName updater function. Now with that in mind, if we actually move this to the name component, we are no worse for wear in the app component, because that's the only component that cares about this state. So that's what we're going to do, and this is called state colocation. So I'm going to grab this because I'm going to need it later. We'll put that in my clipboard, and then we'll get rid of all of this stuff. And instead of having the name being managed in the app, we're going to move the name being managed by this name component. And instead of accepting these props, we have those directly right here. And instead of this onNameChange, I'll paste that to set the name to the current value of that input. Awesome, sweet. So now we have Mulan, and Mushu is her favorite animal, of course. And the application is working just as well, but it actually maybe is working a little bit better because we don't have to re-render our entire app component every time the name changes. We're only re-rendering the name component. So that's maybe a tiny performance gain, nothing really to even mention, honestly, but it can be a pretty significant performance gain in certain situations, and we'll learn more about that in the future. And then in addition, probably more importantly, is the maintenance improvements here. So now I can use this name component in many other places without having to worry about passing it the name and a mechanism for updating that name. I don't have to worry about maintaining that state here in this app. So if I come to maintain the app here, I don't have to worry about that name state because it's managed internally. So this is a practice that I strongly urge you to follow as you're building your React applications. Try to keep your state as close to where it's relevant as possible. And as you make changes over time, maintain that practice of, oh, we don't need this state over here anymore, so let's just co-locate that state to where it needs to be. So in review, all that we did here was we had a change in our display where we no longer needed the name prop. And so we updated our display component, and then we updated the props that we're passing to the display component, so we're not passing more props than we need. And with that, we noticed that the only component that cared about that state was this child component here. And so we moved that state to the child component, making the child component's API much simpler. We're no longer accepting props, and it can encapsulate the management of its own state by itself.